Welcome back to our first podcast guest. We have a very special one. It is Darren Campo.
I also write science fiction books, and I teach at New York University.
Cool.
Amazing. That's quite a bit. That's a lot to juggle around.
What made you want to go from like writing, because I know you write those books, to become a professor?
Well, I think because you can do both at the same time. I always liked, I guess, my favorite show growing up was Star Trek: The Next Generation. And so I got into watching TV shows like with spaceships were my favorite. So I wanted to write, and I would read books about TV shows with spaceships. And so I really liked science. And so I worked in TV and I had an interest in science fiction. So the two kind of just naturally went together. And I went at New York University here in New York. And so I used to go back and, help, students find jobs and, who were interested in TV or wanted to work in TV. And all of those return visits kind of led to me teaching there.
You have 3 books, right? 3 books?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And then your first one is the Alex, it's like an Alex trilogy, isn't it?
Yeah, the Alex Detail. It's called, the first book in the trilogy is called Alex Details Revolution. It's about a teenager named Alex Detail who 10 years earlier had helped save the world from an invasion because he was really smart. But as the years went on, he became famous and less smart. And these aliens come back. And so he doesn't want to fight. So the government just kidnaps him and puts him on a warship and makes him fight in the war. So that was the first book in the trilogy.
Oh, wow. That's cool. That is super cool. So what made you want to write the first book? How did you get into with the writing your books?
I first wanted to write the book when I got my first job in New York because I didn't like the job. I was answering phones and I felt like after school was over, time was going by and I didn't have anything to show for it. And I didn't think I could write a book, but I would, every day after work, I would sit down with my laptop and just try to write a page of a story. And I would kind of force myself to do that, every day, write a page. And I thought, if I write a page every day at the end of 300 days or end of 350 days or so in a year or so, I'll have something like a book. I did that. And then it took me a few years, but, there's times when people I meet, I think are really interesting. I'd like to make characters about them. Or there's things on TV, I think that's really interesting. I'd like to write more about that. So it all kind of came together, and it's forcing myself to write 1 page a day.
That's cool. Do you have a favorite book, or all of them your favorite?
Of my books?
Yeah.
There's a book called Stingers, which I really like, and it's about this group of kids that use bees to take over the world.
So you got into producing, you were a producer for for True TV and CBS? Food Network. Okay. So how did you get into producing? How did you do that?
I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I graduated from college. But I just knew the people who were interviewing us, I didn't want to work. They were banks and insurance companies. I was like, that doesn't sound very interesting. And I saw on a piece of paper that Discovery was looking for was interviewing at NYU, and I was like, oh, Discovery, and I wasn't able to get an interview there, but I did send my resume to different TV networks. I got an interview at CBS, and it was in the research department, and I got a job. So I was in the building, but I had nothing to do with producing. I was looking at TV ratings for the local stations. But I did a really good job of doing analysis of certain local shows and how the local news, we did a lot of local news work. And I ended up getting a job at CBS television stations where I got to work on local news and local broadcasts. So we made a talk show in Chicago. And from there, I just got more and more experience. And that's how I got into production.
You did produce movies. Like, what type of movies did you do? Or is it shows?
Mostly TV shows.
TV
Like I
shows?
started on local news shows, and then I did local talk shows, and then the first big show that that was a big hit that we had in New York was Judge Judy, if you can believe that. They didn't want to license it at CBS because they thought it was not right for the stations, but I thought it was funny. I thought she was funny. Went into when I went to work at Court TV. Some of our big shows were Forensic Files, and then we changed the name of the network from Court TV to True TV, and we started making comedic shows. And at True TV, we made this really popular show called Impractical Jokers.
Oh,
The Impractical, the Joker show, amazing.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And so, did you hand select that yourself, or was that was all part of it?
It wasn't just me. It was me and the people I worked with. But I worked with those people for a long time, from Court TV to True TV, and so we spent a long time kind of turning the audience from crime shows to more fun shows to more comedic shows. And I remember how we found Impractical Jokers. The four guys have a comedy troupe, and they're from Staten Island here, and they have a comedy troupe, and they would do performances, and they made their own tape, like their own TV pilot. Like, this is a long time ago. It's like 15 years ago, like with a camcorder, not with like a cell phone. And it was one of them was in a movie theater, and his challenge was he was hooked up to a heart monitor, and his challenge was he had to stand up and apologize for farting without his heart beating a certain rate. And that was sort of what their TV pilot was. And we watched it funny. In the office, and we thought they were really funny, so we had them in, and we worked on like a format for the show, I think for a couple of years, and then we came up with this format where they would do 3 challenges, and then the loser would have to face a punishment.
No, I loved Impractical Jokers. I was a big fan of them. Sal was my favorite. I like Sal. Sal was funny.
Sal's your favorite?
Yeah. So did you like form relationships with any of the actors, or?
Yeah. I mean, and it's kind of like what you'd think is that when you're making a TV show, when you're working with the people who are in front of the camera, they're in front of the camera, just like you're doing a podcast, and you're like thinking about what you're saying and thinking about your performance. And so what the thing is that when you're doing a show like that, you're trying to get them to just be themselves, even though there's a camera and there's an audience. So you have to spend a lot of time with them. And I guess really they have to trust that what you're going to put on the screen is something that isn't going to embarrass them or ruin their lives.
Yeah. Have you seen anything crazy like an actor's done? Anything crazy that you've seen?
Well, yeah, everything they do. Everything they do is crazy. Sometimes it revolves around food and like stealing other people's food or trying to like play jokes on other people, just to keep everybody kind of, because it gets boring when you're on set, and so things that they do tend to be like things that are entertaining to them.
Okay, has anything like gone wrong at all?
A lot of things at Food Network would go crazy. For example, we did, the show Chopped?
Chopped? Yeah, I think so. I've heard of it.
We did we started a version called Chopped Junior. And it's obviously just chopped with kids, and they're really good cooks. But at the beginning of the shooting day, the kids get there in the morning, and they get nervous and they throw up. Like every show.
Oh, wow.
Shooting. We never showed that, but yeah.
Oh, that's that's funny. So going back to your books, you were really I saw a video where you were really into Pluto for a while. What was your fascination with Pluto?
I don't know. So it was the planet that was furthest away and that we kind of knew the least about. But also, after you get past the gas giants, Saturn, Neptune, there's like this other planet, Pluto, which is like, Mercury, Venus, and Mars and Earth. And it just seems strange to me. Like, what's this planet doing way out there? Like, is there something else to it? So there was I started reading like because it was only discovered a little over 100 years ago and it was discovered by an American. And I thought, like, is it like a military installation? Is it a satellite? Is it really not a planet? So I guess that was with my fascination with it. And then, funny enough, after a few years after Alex Detail came out, NASA, I think it was in the summer of 2018, the Voyager space probe went by Pluto, and like you can now get these really good, cool maps of Pluto, which they didn't have back when I was writing the book. But the research I had was pretty accurate about what Pluto was like, what it was made out of, and how dark it would be there because you're so far away from the sun.
I always thought about Pluto as like this small, like puppy planet, and so I just never thought much of it. And then the fact that you wrote a book about it, it was just like interesting to me. I don't know.
And then they took it out of the planetarium because they're like, it's not big enough to be called a planet anymore. NASA and the European Space Agency both like declassified it as a planet. They call it it's a dwarf planet is the actual real name for it. And if you go to most planetariums, like the one here on the Upper West Side of New York, have taken Pluto down. Like it's not up with the other planets.
So were you born in Connecticut?
Yes.
Born in Connecticut and then went to New York when? When did you go to New York?
In 1991 to go to NYU.
Oh, okay. So you stayed there, wrote your books in Connecticut, and then went to NYU? Okay.
No, when I was in school, I wrote them here.
Oh, you wrote them. Oh, okay. So as a professor, what are you professing again?
It's called the business of producing. It's media and technology.
Media technology. Okay. What do you teach? Like, what's your main points that you do?
That how you can develop material into a TV show or a film, and based on your interest. So what the development process is, what you would have to take into a TV network or a film studio to pitch them, to get them interested. Like, it wouldn't just be a script, it would be a script and a format and a lot of research on the content. And then the mechanics of how a production is executed, how to put together budgets, and really all of the things that you would know to learn how to produce something.
Okay. Yeah, I actually been wanting to get into producing. Do you have any advice for like beginner people who want to get into producing?
Yeah, I have a lot of advice. First is you can do a lot, make a lot of stuff yourself now, like you're doing, and even with your, just with what you can shoot on a phone camera, or like you can get a lens on your phone to do higher quality shooting. And then the fact that you can edit on your computer or on your phone, either in iMovie or Final Cut or whatever, but iMovie comes like with every Apple product, and Samsung has its own. So you can do a lot of video editing on your own. And I think that that's something you can do no matter where you live or whether you have a job in TV. So you do that. And then on the other side of it, you can try to get work with people who are in the field of producing, so you can learn from them. So, every market has local TV stations. Pretty much everybody, every place has a lot of film production, depending on what the people who are producing are looking for backdrops and locations and tax incentives. So I would be looking for job opportunities in production wherever I live, but also trying to create my own stuff too.
I've been trying to get into producing for like a year. I'm just a beginner at this stuff, but that's good advice. I'll keep that in mind when I try to get bigger.
Yeah.
Is there any awards you've won? I saw you went to Teen Awards in 2017 or something.
All right, the Teen Choice Awards. It wasn't an award for the books, but they had Alex Detail's Revolution and Stinger's that they gave to the people who got so they got the surfboard and a book.
That's cool.
And so I got to be there. Yeah, it was fun.
That's awesome. All right, I'm gonna end it off with one question. It's just gonna be a short podcast. I just want to make a short one for first guest one. Who are your role models?
So we started off talking about Star Trek: The Next Generation, and Captain Picard and my real life dad are like very similar, and I feel like they are my role models for like how to be like a really nice and courageous person in life. So so I would say they're my role models, but also I have a dog, and she's very bossy, and I like that. And I'm like, I want to be more like my dog too. I like to be a little more outgoing and bossy. You know, she runs up to other dogs and barks at them. I think that's funny.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast. I appreciate you being our first guest.
I'll see you next time.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Bella, and thanks, Jesse, too.